Howdy y'all, TheJTJ here with how to add shelves to the Ikea Detolf glass cabinet. Today I'll be showing you guys how to add some glass shelves to the Ikea Detolf glass door cabinet. Many of us hobbyists and collectors have these cabinets. They're very nice and affordable. The biggest downside to them is they only come with 3 glass shelves. So there are some IKEA hacks out on the web that are showing different way to add shelving to these. This is just sort of the way that I've used in the past, and it's worked pretty good. So I'll go over sort of the supply list and the tool list, and then we'll get right into the steps that I use to add some shelving to these cabinets. Okay, I'm going to go over the supplies and the tools that you will need to do this operation. The first thing is you want to get a nut driver. This is a 5/16 nut driver. You could also use some kind of a socket set. I'm also going to have a crescent wrench. You can either use a box end wrench or any kind of wrench too. I'm going to be using these Ace Hardware double-sided mounting tabs. This is basically just double-sided tape, sort of with a foam center. Any sort of foam double-sided tape will work for this. I just like these because they're already cut to the size that I need, so I don't have to mess with that. You're going to need some cable ties or rope clamps. Have a U-bolt in the center. This is the 1/8 inch clamp set. I buy them in the packs of 3 because they're way cheaper. If you just needed sort of 4, you might want to buy them individually. Something to measure with. You can use a tape measure. You can use a ruler. You could just trim a piece of wood block to the size that you want to use. You could just find something laying around that is the size you want. And then you will need some sort of, I like the very, very fine tip Sharpie because I'm going to make a little mark of where these are going to get mounted at. A couple of tips before we really get started. The first thing you want to do is make sure if you have a full case that you go ahead and empty that out. You don't want to mess around and end up having a shelf collapse or bumping something and having it all collapse on you with all your collectibles. The other good point is before you get started, take the time to get some Windex and clean it out. This is a perfect time to clean all the shelves and get them really nice and neat, and then you can watch the next video talking about how I seal that up so the dust won't come back in later. Your next step is to take your ruler or your tape measure and mark where you're going to hang your clamps. Make sure that they're all equal distance. I marked mine at 9 inches on the shaft. Alright, step 2. We're going to start putting on the ties. They come apart. You take the little nuts off like that. You take the U-bolts off and you got your pieces. You're going to put this piece in on the gray shaft exactly where you want it to go. You can size the U-bolts around. The U-bolt will sort of slide around the pole and you just turn it. Because what you're going to want, and I'll show you in a second, is you're going to want this facing. You're going to want this facing the inside of the cabinet, sort of at an angle. Okay, and I'm going to put this on, and then I will show you how I have positioned it, and we'll move to the next step. Alright, so we have the clamp on. I have not tightened it yet. I've sort of just got it positioned. A couple things to note here. On top of the clamp, and you can probably see it there, it is very smooth. These clamps always have a rough side where it came off, I guess, the mold, and it has a smooth side. Make sure you face the smooth side up. Also, get it tight, but don't over tighten these. Now, you want it to be firm. You obviously want it to be tight enough to hold this shelf up, because you do not want it falling. However, do not over tighten these, because what happens is that this piece of gray metal that holds up the whole case, they're pretty tough, and these clamps, they have a breaking point right in the center, and I've snapped a couple on the last time I did this because I tightened them too tight, and when you do that, they tend to fail right in the center, and they just sort of broke in two, and then you're out of, you're out of clamp. So it never hurts when you're going to the store to purchase these, get a couple extra just in case. Alright, the other reason that we're not going to get it super tight yet is because we want to put our shelf on when all four are on, and we're going to check, because regardless of how many times you measure and how perfectly you line these up, you will not get it, the shelf will be a little wobbly. So that way we're not having to untighten these like a lot, they're just sort of hand tight. And once we get them positioned, we might have to drop one, or we might have to raise one up to get that shelf sitting perfectly. And once we got it, then we can tighten them all up, put the tabs on them, and we'll be done. So let me get the other three on, and then we will start measuring it up. Okay, I've got the shelf sat in here, and so on this particular one, I had a couple burrs. This was when they cut it. It didn't cut very perfectly. But the back is just as bad. So this is one of the worst shelves that I had. So I'm putting it on the bottom. I have it set in. Now you have to be super careful during this part because we don't have the double-sided tape to help hold it. But this is just a check. I'm going to sort of tilt it. So we've got a little play here. You sort of got to figure out, what do you want to do? Are you going to come up with this one, or are we going to come down with this one? So I'm going to adjust these until I get the glass sitting on there perfectly. Once again, be super careful during this part, especially if you're using the glass shelving. If you're using wood and other stuff, it's probably not that big of a deal. Okay, I've readjusted. This one I just brought it up just a little bit, and now the shelf is, I'm sort of moving it up and down a little bit. It's not moving, it is pretty level. So the final step is I'm just going to take the double-sided tape and I will put tabs on each one of these. Now, as an example of that, you can see what I've done there. Now this tape is still, it's been on here a couple months and it is still super sticky. If I sort of try to move this shelf at all, it's not going to move, the whole case will move. So these double-sided tapes do a couple things. One, they help adhere it so it's not going to slip off if you accidentally bump it, or if it gets sort of bumped or something. Then it also gives a little bit of a cushion of a pad so the glass isn't sitting directly on the metal like it is now. So I'm sure you could do some other stuff. You could, there is some nice glues out there that could do the same thing and really hold it in place. But I've thought about using the Velcro sort of stickies, so you could put a piece of the hook on one and the pile on the other, and then you could have it Velcroed on there. But I just sort of went with this double-sided tape, and it's worked out so far. Okay, I've got the last of it mounted up. The double-sided tape's on, and let's see. It's not budging. I sort of use a paper towel when I'm putting these on. A couple reasons. One, just in case I missed a piece of the glass edge, I don't want to get cut. But also, I've already cleaned these, so I'm trying to handle them without putting my fingers too much on them to leave all those prints. I appreciate you watching.